In this video, I'm going to show you some different exercises you can do to build speed and dexterity in your left hand. The most basic one is a variation on 8 on a hand. Instead of doing an equal number of strokes on your right hand as you do your left hand, we're going to do about a ratio of 1 to 4. What I mean by that is that we're going to do 8 notes on your right hand, but then 32 notes on your left hand. And we're going to count them as eighth notes. So really you're going to play 1 measure of eighth notes with your right hand and 4 measures of eighth notes with your left hand. I would start somewhere around 110 beats a minute and try and work up to about 200 beats a minute. Let's do this together. So I'll start with 8 on the right hand, 32 on the left hand. 1 and 2, and here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. Make sure you're also practicing this as taps. Now I'm going to play that same exercise as taps and a little bit quicker. 1 and 2, and here we go. Another great exercise to do is variations of accent tap. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to refer to them as 8s, 7s, 6s, 5s, and so forth. What I mean by that is for 8s, on one hand, you're going to play 8 notes. The first one is an accent, and the other 7 notes are going to be a tap, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Notice on the last note that was a tap before the accent, I raised the stick up in preparation for the next one. Let me play through some of those for you, right hand only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's important to keep the taps even and low and to bring your stick all the way up for the accent. Don't let the first tap bounce up and be way too high. Keep the very first tap all the way down here. A great way is to, I would say, at least do 4 cycles per hand. So let's go ahead and do that same thing on the left hand. Now on your own time, you should work your way down gradually, going from 7s, 6s, 5s, all the way down to 2s. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to skip down some of those. I'm going to skip 7, 6s, and 5s and show you some 4s. Threes. And 2s. A variation you can do on accent tap to really build your chops and the muscles and strengthen your arms is playing every note as a pressed buzz. Rather than letting the stick bounce back, you're going to bury it into the head. And you want the buzz to be as short as possible. We don't want this kind of buzz. Zzz. You want to really squeeze with your fingers and your arm muscles and make it as short as possible. Zzz. So I'm going to play 4s with you using press buzzes. Now on this mesh practice head, it's probably kind of hard to hear, but if you're practicing on a rubber practice pad or a snare drum, or especially a marching snare drum, you can really hear when you're doing it correctly because instead of being zzz, 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 you'll hear zzz, 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 zzz. The press buzzes will be extremely short. The faster you go and the shorter you make them, the more you're going to feel the burn, and then when you go back to playing regular style, it's going to be that much easier and you're going to have those chops. Next, we're going to talk about using double and triple beat to build your accent taps. Everybody knows double beat. And triple beat. great way to practice them is, we'll start with double beat first. Play the first note as a tap and the second note of each one as an accent. Tap accent. Da 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 da. This really forces you, after you play the tap, to bring the stick up in preparation for the accent. You can't rely entirely on the bounce of the drum. You really have to use correct technique, your fingers, the muscles in your arm, to bring the stick up after that tap in order to get an accent. You can also do triple beat the same way. For triple beat, I would play the first two notes as a tap, 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 and the third note as an accent. It should go without saying that if you're really trying to focus on bringing your left hand up to speed and dexterity and control with your right hand, I would practice all of these more times through on your left hand than your right hand. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the difference between German grip, American grip, and French grip. German grip essentially means that you're holding the sticks like this, and notice the back of my hand is pretty much facing upward. This is a great all-around technique to use. You have plenty of control, power, and you can really, if you're doing multi-percussion or a drum set, you can really get around the kit easily. This is the way most people start off learning drums. American grip is pretty well similar to it. You're just going to ever so slightly roll your wrists out. So that, in my opinion, I think of American grip as this meaty part between your thumb and first finger rather, pointed up towards the ceiling. This honestly is what most people play most of the time, definitely for drum set. It's not really a whole lot different than German grip. Lastly is French grip style. Only time I really use French grip is if I'm playing a jazz ride cymbal pattern on drum set. Not a rock ride cymbal pattern, but specifically jazz or something where I really want a lightness and really emphasize the bounce of the stick. Or if I'm playing timpani. For French grip, you're going to play with your thumbs facing upward, and it's a much lighter stroke, much less wrist, and much more finger control. I'm going to play this way so you can see the inside of my hand as I play. Now me personally, for years, I was able to play pretty quickly French grip in my right hand, but I never really had that speed with my left hand. So I'm showing this to you in that basically, I would say mainly focus on German and American grip playing 99% of the time. But if you really want to also get your left hand finger control up to where your right hand is, definitely would be a good idea to spend some time on the pad. And I wouldn't necessarily try and do everything I've showed you here with the left hand French grip, but at least just playing steady 8 on a hand or just continuous. And really focus on getting a consistent stroke, volume, and try and match the tone and feel of your right hand. Lastly, I'm going to leave you with this. You can also, in addition to always using a metronome to practice, by the way, start slowly and correctly, gradually increase speed. I usually say about 3 beats a minute at a time is good. More than that sometimes is a little bit too much. But in addition to using a metronome, you can play along, find some music you like. Pretty much any modern recording was recorded along with a click track or a metronome. Now, if you go back into the 80s and certainly the 70s and before, they probably were not using a metronome in the recording studio. But definitely any modern music, and you can tell because it's going to have a really steady beat to it, crank out 8th notes, pretend you're playing hi-hat. In fact, you can practice on the hi-hat. If you're sitting at your drum set, don't feel like you always got to just practice these on the snare drum. Move these different patterns around the kit. I would say play them all on the closed hi-hat. Think about it, when you're playing drum set, you actually play more notes on a closed hi-hat than you do anything else, maybe unless you're playing metal. Practice them on the ride cymbal. Practice moving them around the toms, right? Crank out 8th note jams just to some music you like, okay?